cars, biggest bars, they got rivers of gold. But the wind goes right through you's no place for the old. When you first took my hand on a cold Christmas Eve, you promised me Broad Street was waiting for me. You were handsome, you were pretty, you're the king of South Philly. When the band finished playing, they howled out for more. The leathers were swinging, all the drunks they were singing. We fought on a corner, then danced through the night. The sound of the Silver Ages choir.
We're going to let a chief steal the show? Hell no.
Bells were ringing out for Christmas Day.
Welcome into episode 21 of Uncaged Sports Talk, here on a special Christmas edition of Uncaged Sports Talk. We have a huge Eagles game coming up on Monday night, or Monday afternoon, you could say. But Eagles-Giants, rivalry game, Christmas Day. That's going to be an exciting game. Hopefully the Eagles don't lose to Tommy Cutlets, or I won't know what to do. Philly will definitely be in turmoil, as you can see by the title. They'll definitely be in turmoil if we lose to Tommy Cutlets. But before we get into all that, I want to introduce my guest this week. We've known each other for 15 years, longer than that. We've known each other since we were about 5, and T-ball, I believe, is where we met. Chase Davis, we went to middle school together. We talked all through high school and grew up together. You want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Just big Steelers fan, big LeBron fan. Don't keep up with baseball or anything like that too much, but I am a world famous Philly sports hater.
That is accurate. About what's going on with your Steelers so far this year?
Not off to the best start. I mean, we made some moves, got rid of Matt Canada, so there's a start, but I don't think it's going to get the job done with Kenny Pickett.
Yes, I saw that you guys are doing really good this year. Like at the beginning, like record-wise, but you guys were out yarded by like every team. Every team was out gaining you, and you started off like 7-3,
Something like
or whatever
we
it was.
we started
Like
hot,
6-2.
but it's if you're actually watching the games, you could just tell that we weren't actually like a team that was going to be competitive for anything. So
Ever since Mitch Trubisky took back over too, it's been even worse.
it's kind of like the Eagles, you know, they'd win a game, but you could just tell that it was kind of like gritting and grinding it out, and you knew that they weren't really the team they were hyped up to be.
They were outplayed in the games.
Yeah, despite the score at the end of the
game,
they weren't always the best team despite winning. Just like when they beat the Ravens, that's a fluke win.
Before we get into some of the Eagle stuff, I also want to ask you, because I know you're a big LeBron fan. We actually haven't been able to talk about it since I haven't been on Xbox much. What are your thoughts on the play-in tournament since LeBron won it?
I mean, I'm obviously biased in it, but I thought it was interesting. It didn't really like. It's hard to tell because it's the first year for it, but I mean, it was interesting. They're trying to do something new, which I appreciate that.
I gave someone a good thought, like a good adjustment they could make for it before. I forget who I gave the idea to. I may have said it on here once or twice already. But with the in-season tournament, the one thing they could do that won't get any pushback, you give the team who wins the tournament an automatic win in round 1. Like, they don't win the series, but they start the series 1-0 no matter who they play.
What do you mean, like a bye in the playoffs?
Like you don't get a bye or anything, but like a perfect example would be the Pacers. They're gonna probably be like a 6 seed, 5 seed, or something like that. The Pacers get in, they're a 5 or 6 seed. They automatically start up 1-0 against whoever they play.
Wait,
and the
they
pushback
that you mean?
Yeah, they start up 1-0 in the series. They get that advantage in the series. The series
That would be tough to actually accomplish. That would throw a lot of stuff away.
The pushback that it will get is that it could like diminish like the regular season work. But the pushback you could give on that is, okay, you should have won that regular season match. You should have won the in-season tournament then, and you could have had the advantage. So, like, if the Pacers were to play the Sixers in round 1, Pacers would start up 1-0. It's hard to argue if you're the Sixers because you had the chance to win that tournament as well, and you came up short that you were able to get the job done.
Yeah, I don't know. I
And
mean, I think incentivizing people with the money. I think everybody got $500,000. It's hard to incentivize people that are making millions and millions with that much money.
it's more to, I guess, bring like fan interest, because just giving an automatic playoff spot, that doesn't really do much. Most of the teams that are going to win it anyway are going to make the playoffs, so it's almost like window dressing to it. Like, it's almost not what it's made out to be if you make that the reward for it.
I'm sure they'll tweak it as the years go on. It was the first year, so it was just. I mean, it was better
Yeah.
than nothing. Just because a lot of times when a season's that long, same thing with the MLB. It's just you kind of just lose interest during the middle of the season.
I saw that a lot of people were saying it made it more interesting to watch the games, like made the games more competitive, because the games during the regular season sometimes aren't even competitive. It made it more competitive, which I
Yeah, I
think
mean
is
they
what
at
they
least changed the courts and
accomplished.
stuff, and they tried to give somebody or give people at least a reason to check it out. So you can't fault them for
N-
that.
Now I do want to get into the Eagles. I know you listen to a lot of Philly sports radio sometimes, at least you have in the past. The midday show with John, when it used to be John Ritchie and Joe DeCamera, they're now on the morning show. Before we get into that, I want to show this clip, and I'll give my thoughts and let you give your thoughts as well.
Jalen Hurts is running a QB draw to the left. The tight end's going to pull. He's deep. Tight end's deep, so he's sifting backside. There you go.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Eli,
He sifted, but it was.
I think the biggest problem with the Eagles right now is the offense is just bad, very bad play calling. That throw to AJ Brown was a very, very bad play call. Like, it was ill-advised by Jalen Hurts when you had to check down the Gainwell, but you had like the rest of the team going deep. You shouldn't be doing that when you only needed like 13 yards to get in field goal range for Jake Elliott, who's already hit 2 field goals to send you to overtime this year. It's very bad offense right now. The team chemistry, I don't think, is nearly where you want it to be. There's something off big time with the team chemistry. With AJ Brown, he had the pouting earlier in the year when he wasn't getting the ball. Darius Slay, he's saying he played good, but the rest of the team didn't. Like, there's some big problems with the team chemistry, which is my biggest concern with the Eagles right now. And I will show a clip regarding that in a minute, and a take I'll have that some people aren't going to believe and agree with, but I'll get into that in a second. I want to know your thoughts on how they're looking right now.
Yeah, I mean your offense has definitely regressed as far as play calling goes, or gotten stale, whatever you want to say. But like you said, for the last play of the game where he threw that interception, I feel like, I mean, how much can you blame the coach for that if Jalen Hurts doesn't get rid of the ball or makes an ill-advised pass like that? Like, I
Yeah,
feel like you can definitely blame the play call to some extent, but that's on your quarterback to make the smart read there if it's not there.
yeah, he had to check down the Gainwell. I did see the picture that checked down the Gainwell. If I could somehow pull it up quick enough, it would be hard to pull it up quick enough
Was that
while
was that
recording.
pass on second or third
But
down?
it was, I think, first down,
First
because
down?
you
Because
just need it.
I remember it not being like a must get situation because you guys had the 2 timeouts. You
Yeah,
had plenty of time.
you just need it 13 yards to get in the field goal range. I believe it was first down, maybe second after like the scramble he had. I remember the scramble he had running sideline to sideline. But I did hear, I forget who said it. Maybe Sirianni today. Sirianni today said that AJ Brown thing was the first read. And when you look at a clip, I was telling my dad this yesterday. When you look at the picture that you see Gainwell opening, AJ Brown's even with the defender. And the saying is, if you're even, you're leaving. So I kind of see what Jalen Hurts saw. But why are you looking for a deep shot there? I heard Sirianni today. I saw a clip before getting on here to record say that, oh, in those situations, sometimes you can draw up a pass interference. Like, if you're calling that play to draw up a pass interference, whoever called that play should be fired if they called that for that reasoning. It's just very bad right now. Like I said, though, my biggest worry is the team chemistry.
I mean, the
What
problem
are
on
your
that play
thoughts?
was that it was a 50-50 ball. The safety's the one that came
Yeah,
over and made the play on it.
yeah. It was a bad read by Hurts too. One thing I've noticed too. seems like he's only looking at one guy and then deciding to run. Kind of like previous years. The one thing people have said with like made him regressing, haven't seen this though out of Hurts with all the turnovers. Even when he was bad before, when he was below average before, he wasn't turning the ball over. He was smart with the football. Like it's confusing. Like where did all these turnovers Problems come from? Like it's just very confusing right now. I was telling you before we came on here, and I've heard some people talking about it. I think there's a chance that Sirianni gets fired. I want to know your full thoughts on that in a second, but I want to show this clip and then I'll give my reasoning for that. It's Jalen Hurts talking about commitment after the game.
All year, been on the same page. Everyone been on the same page, and we didn't execute. I don't think we're committed enough. Just got to turn it around. It's a challenge that we have to embrace. Just continue to see it through.
What do you mean by that, about being committed?
So with that comment he made, people are speculating, was he talking about one specific player? Who was he talking about? I think he was talking about the whole team. I think there's a decent amount of, not the whole team specifically, but a decent chunk of the team. I think there's probably some players on the team who are not giving their full effort, who aren't fully bought in, which pisses him off probably. And he let it slip and probably wants to take that comment back. But that reflects to me poorly, very poorly on the head coach if there's people who aren't bought in. Like, you can't have people not bought in. And Sirianni's one job, he doesn't call plays. He doesn't call plays at all. He's the CEO type head coach. He's the guy who is there to rally the troops, organize the locker room, make sure people are bought in. That's what he's supposed to be doing well. And he's not even doing that well, it seems. I want to know your thoughts on that's why I think he might get fired if they lose round one. If they lose round one with the amount of talent on the roster and with the cracks starting to show around the team, I think there's a very good chance he gets fired because I think the chemistry is very poor. And he's the guy who's supposed to help the team chemistry.
I mean, could he get fired? Yeah, it's the NFL, so anything could happen. And we know that coaches have a quick life in the NFL, quick turnover rate if they're not doing what they need to do. But this is going to be his third year straight making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Granted, they do have a great roster, and it's kind of expected. But I don't think you can cut the guy that give him that short of a leash when this is going to be his third straight year of the playoffs. They were in the Super Bowl last year. And the season's not over yet. I mean, you guys could still very well make the Super Bowl again and maybe even win it. It's not over yet.
The thing that sticks out to me with the firing potentially, if it were to happen, or potentially happening when it gets to that point, they fired Doug Peterson 3 years after winning a Super Bowl. No one saw that coming at all. Like, if they're firing him 3 years after a Super Bowl, Sirianni didn't win the Super Bowl. And there's some cracks looking like 2020 with the chemistry, with the leaks coming out, and seems to be no accountability from some people in the organization. Back to Slay again. That man I'm starting to despise. He's becoming my least favorite player. He shows no accountability. As a coach, you got to hold those players accountable. I don't know if he is in that locker room, but if he's not, and they lose first round of the playoffs, heads might roll. If Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman showed the ability to get rid of a coach very quickly, very, very quickly. I want to propose something to you before I bring up something that I discussed prior to the show. Something that I've thought about, if the worst case scenario does happen and he does get fired, there's one coach that's going to be available. I wouldn't give him the GM role because he's been horrible as a GM. He's built a horrible roster as a GM. So he wouldn't even touch like player acquisitions, player personnel. But strictly as a head coach, I would take it all day long if Sirianni does get fired. The guy up in New England, Bill Belichick. Like if I would take that all day long if
Oh, he's not gonna
Sirianni
leave
does get
there.
fired.
If he left
He's
there,
being,
I doubt he has any plans of coaching somewhere
well,
else.
there's reports that he's likely going to be fired because they were thinking about firing him after the Colts game they had this year in Germany, I believe that game was. So there's already talks about the Patriots firing him. If he's
I don't think
available,
there's no way that they're gonna fire him, like on the record fire him. Like maybe they might talk like behind closed
yeah.
doors, but if anything, he'll resign. They're not gonna fire him. Not what he's
I
after all he's done for them.
I said that like beginning of the year. I think my hot take before the year, I should post this on all my sites, was that at the end of the year, it'll be like a mutual step down, basically, one way or another. But if he does become available, that's my target.
You know
If
who might be available
Sirianni
for you
makes it
guys?
out, Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin might be available for you guys next year.
I
I'm
would
hoping
take
he
that
is.
too in a heartbeat. I'll
Yeah.
take him over Nick Sirianni
Might regret
all
that
day
in a
long,
year
as
or
long
two.
as he can bring in a good offensive coordinator.
That's the
I
problem
just,
is he's worse than Sirianni with controlling a locker room. Do you think it's
yeah,
bad now?
AJ Brown drama. I mean, not the AJ Brown drama, Antonio Brown drama.
Him,
That
Pickens is being weird now. Deontay Johnson's been weird. They've had multiple players come
yeah,
out and say stuff about other players.
I saw the George Pickens thing. He didn't want to block because he didn't want to get hurt. If that
Yeah,
happened
Jalen
in
Warren just said
Philly,
something about that.
he would get ripped if that happened in Philly. He would get ripped if that happened in most like big time sports cities. Like,
Yeah,
how
that's
do
the
you feel about that?
it's just our culture on our team now. We've just become okay with being mediocre year after year because we, despite having maybe a positive record, it's not showing. Like we're not winning playoff games. We've never been in a game and I thought, wow, this is a pretty good team. I haven't felt that
Mhm.
since we had Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Roethlisberger. It's been a long time
One
since I thought we were a good team.
one thing I've noticed with the Steelers, and it also pointed out with the Rashad Mendenhall stuff this week.
Oh God.
It seems like every player, at least offensively, when they leave the Steelers, just is off their rocker. Juju became like TikTok boy. Antonio Brown had like CTE. Le'Veon Bell held out and was never the same after. Rashad Mendenhall made the comment he did this past week. Like they all seem to be off their rocker when they leave. The only like sane one has been like Big Ben after leaving. The rest seem to all just become weirdos.
I just think it's a very laxed culture it's become, and nobody's like
Yeah,
being disciplined in the locker room. So people just
not being held accountable.
do what they want. Yep.
The question I was going to ask you, I brought it up on this. This was a tweet. I'll give credit to where credit's due on a tweet by someone I follow. I met at a Phillies playoff game. He works for NBC Sports Philadelphia. Spencer McKercher. He said, just discussed this at the office. What if the Birds get the 2 seed, the Rams get the 7 seed, and something happens to Stafford? Hope nothing happens to anyone. But then Wentz comes to Philly and gets a win. Would the city still be standing after that night? That would be... Philly would be in a meltdown if that happened. Like, people would be calling for Jalen Hurts to be traded if that happened. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I would love it, but that's never going to happen. Matthew Stafford's not going to get some miraculous injury and not have to play the game, and they're going to have to make the 7 seed to play you guys.
Yeah, we'd have to make the 2 seed too, and we aren't even in control of the 2 seed. Probably get into that when I get to my power rankings in a second. But Philly would be if that happens, Sirianni will be fired. If we play the Rams and somehow Wentz is the starter and beats us, Sirianni will be fired. There'll be talk about Hurts maybe even getting traded if that scenario happens because people will be begging for people's jobs to be taken.
Well, yeah, but that's how
With
Philly sports are. If you guys win against the Giants by 3 points, they'll be talking about benching Hurts for Mariota.
that's how I can see that too. Because I was saying to my dad, I wouldn't be saying that, but I was saying to my dad, we need to win this game by like 42-10. Bring back confidence. 42-10 type victory to bring back confidence. I don't think it's going to be that type of victory. I think it's going to be a lot closer. Matter of fact, I'll give my prediction. I've done that for the last few shows. Eagles 27, Giants 13. I'd be happy if it was 27-13. Show some improvements of the offense getting back to what it should be. I could even see it being like 24-13, which I would not be happy with only 24 points. 27's right on that
What's the
border.
spread? 11.5 or
It's
12?
on some sites 11.5. On ESPN, which I marked down for the one you gave me, did 10.5. So it's like 10.5, 11.5, around there.
I'll say
So
this:
like
if
a
they
20,
cover the spread by a point, I don't see that being like a like
Ye-
morale boosting victory.
yeah, that wouldn't be morale boosting. If they win 42-10, that's encouraging. I'll be like, okay, maybe that's the type of victory I need out of them to be excited moving forward. Otherwise, I'm just going to be like, okay, well, you still are in turmoil, which isn't looking good at all. Before we get into Luke's list and Chase's best bets and Luke's locks for the episode, I want to let you all know to head over and visit my friend Dan the Man Stanley at Sheridan Nissan, where they will hook you up with a new car. Just let them know Luke Saranka and Uncaged Sports Talk sent you. Now, for Luke's list, my NFL power rankings. And I'll let Chase react to these afterwards. Moving down 6 spots is the Denver Broncos. The Broncos were looking good prior to this week. I had them at 9 last week. I posted that on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. They moved down 6 spots after they got just straight up embarrassed by the Lions. I still think they got a solid team there. Russell Wilson's okay. He's a shell of what he used to be, but he's okay. They got Javonte Williams. He's solid. Cortland Sutton's been good. Jerry Judy's been solid. They still got a solid team. Pat Surtain. They are what their record is. They're exactly what their record is. Like, they don't have a great team, but they have a team that middle of the pack, 15th I think is a perfect spot for them. Trending up is the Raiders. They moved back up to the 25th spot in my power rankings. The Raiders had that blowout win against the Chargers, but it was against a backup QB. And the Raiders still just haven't been that great this year. They've been subpar this year. There is a typo on there. It says the Seahawks moved up 7 spots, but they did only move up 5 spots, as well as the Raiders. The Seahawks are at 10. The Seahawks move up to 10 after big win for them with a backup QB against a fairly good team. Eagles are still a good team. They just are having a lot of turmoil right now there in Philadelphia. A lot of problems, cracks starting to show on the foundation in Philadelphia. But Seahawks beat a very good team. They got a good receiving, not very good, but a good team. The Seahawks got a good receiving core with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN. They got Kenneth Walker, who's been good. They got a good team there in Seattle. Noah Fant as the tight end. Their defense is solid. Witherspoon's hurt right now. Woolen was benched this year, but their defense is still okay. The Seahawks coming at 10. It's almost a result, too, of the rest of the NFL not being good that the Seahawks are 10th in the NFL right now. The rest of this list and up, I think all these teams are good teams are starting to become good teams. Good to great teams. I feel like from 9 to 4 are good teams. 2 and 3 are really good, and then 1's great. But 9, Rams coming at number 9, they move up 1 spot. They're looking really good right now. They're on fire ever since Matt Stafford came back and Kyron Williams came back. They're on a roll there. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. They're looking really good there in Los Angeles. I think that team's headed in a good direction. I could see them getting to the divisional round of the playoffs, depending on matchups, maybe even the second round of the playoffs, depending on how the seeding shakes out. But coming in at number 8 is the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the same problem with the Chiefs. They had a win, but they do drop 2 spots. Their offense just is this year. Mahomes threw 2 picks. It's almost like the Eagles. Chiefs and Eagles are having very similar seasons. Their offenses aren't what they should be. Rasheed Rice is starting to break out, which is a good sign for the Chiefs. But the Chiefs right now, if you stop Travis Kelce, you stop that offense for the most part. They only beat the Patriots by 10. That's not a good look for a team that's supposed to be dominant like the Chiefs, with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes and a tight end like Travis Kelce. The rest of that offense there in Kansas City is just eh. Coming in at number 7 is the Eagles. We talked about them a little bit. I actually like what I saw out of Keely Ringo this week and Sidney Brown. I think Keely Ringo is going to be really good when Slay and Avonte Maddox come back for the playoffs. Bradbury would be benched in a heartbeat. Keely Ringo is the number 2 quarter on this team right now. He only played every now and then as he split reps with Eli Ricks, but he looked really good in the reps he did get, especially against DK Metcalf. For them, all the yards were given up on James Trashberry. Like all the yards were given up on Bradbury on that last drive. I like Keely Ringo for our future, which I'm excited about. We got a solid D line. D line's not nearly as good as last year. Doesn't have the depth it did. Reddick's not getting home. Sweat's dropped off for some reason. Carter's hit a wall to a degree. He had the sack and the pick 6 last week, or the fumble 6 last week against the Cowboys. Well, Carter's been okay in the second half of the year. Jordan Davis has hit a wall. But the offense is the biggest problem. The offense needs to put up points. They're an offense that should be putting up 30 a game. If they put up 30 a game, no one's talking about the defense. And they probably win. They at least win the Seattle game, and the other 2 games are completely different if the offense is doing what it should. The Lions coming at 6. They actually jumped the Eagles for the first time this year. The Lions were starting to leak oil, but their win against the Broncos almost steadied the ship. A huge blowout win. Their offense is really good. That running game with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is really good there in Detroit. The defense is what it is. It's But their offense with Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Goff is solid. That's what's going to win them games. And they're an offense that needs to put up 30 points. If they can put up 30 points, they're going to win a good part of their games. The problem is Goff turning the ball over in the defense. But the Lions coming at 6. The Eagles need a win like the Lions had last Saturday night. If the Eagles get a win like that, fans will calm down. The panic button, you'll have your finger off of the panic button. You'll still have your eyebrow raised, but they need a win like that. The Lions got a calming win to steady the ship after their loss against the Bears. Coming in at number 5, the Cowboys. They dropped 3 spots. I think the game against the Bills was just a one-off game. They had 10 people sick going into the game, not just 1. 10. That was just a one-off game for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are not good on the road. They're a front-running team. Really good at home. Like, as good as the Niners. When they're at home, they're as good as the Niners, which is hot takey. And I hate the Cowboys. But the fact I'm saying they're that good should tell people all you need to know about the Cowboys. An Eagles fan saying when the Cowboys are at home, they're scary good. Dak Prescott's been solid this year. He had a bad game against the Bills, but it's one game. In rain, cold weather. They're not used to playing in that weather. The Cowboys coming at 5. They got a good offense, solid defense. Defense got gashed in the running game, but solid pass defense. Cowboys coming at number 5. They're better than the Lions, Eagles, Chiefs, Rams, Seahawks, and more. Coming in at number 4 is the Dolphins. The Dolphins are quietly sneaking back up this list. They've been looking solid in recent weeks. They just won without Tyreek Hill 30-0. And I expected the Jets to actually cover and put up a fight. The Dolphins surprised me in a 30-0 win without Tyreek Hill. Tua, I believe, was 20 for 23 against a solid defense. A lot of quarterbacks have struggled against this year. That's impressive. It has an eyebrow raised for me in a good way for the Dolphins. Dolphins are going to be in the thick of it come playoff time in the AFC. Coming in at number 3, it's the Bills. If they make the playoffs, to me, they're the team to watch for. They're trending in the right direction in the last few weeks. They're looking really good recently. Just had a beat down of Dallas. It was 31-10, but for the most, it was more like 31-3 for the final score. Dallas got a garbage time touchdown. The Bills are looking really good right now. Only had 74 yards and put up 31 points. They thrashed the Cowboys running wise. And the Bills, ever since firing Joe Brady, have been a really good offense. And they got the Chargers coming up. That'll be a blowout. I have them on my Luke's Locks. I'll get back into the Bills shortly. But the Bills, number 3 right now in the NFL, they're really looking really good. Coming in at number 2, the Ravens finally move up to number 2 for the first time in about 2 months. The Ravens are really good defense, good offense. They just lost Keaton Mitchell, but good offense. Ravens are moving back up for the first time since losing Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson, if they beat the Niners this week, could have himself in the MVP as a front runner for MVP if they win this Monday night on what could be a Super Bowl preview. Lamar Jackson might very well be the front runner for MVP if that happens. But that Ravens team's looking really good right now. They deserve that number 2 spot. They've been consistent all year long for the most part, only 3 losses. And their defense is playing really, really good this year. Kyle Hamilton's been good. Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen at linebacker, they've been really good. The Ravens coming at number 2. And coming in at number 1, the 49ers. The 49ers are just a really good team. Well-oiled machine. I've said it all year long. If they get a lead against you, you're in trouble. They're not gonna look back, and they're gonna run up the score on you if they get a lead. You need to get a lead early against them, or else you're in deep shit. You're in trouble against them, and it's gonna be hard to beat them. If you even let them hang around, it's gonna be hard to beat them because they might pull away by halftime or by the third quarter. Now, if you're close in the fourth quarter, that's where the question marks are going to arise for the Niners. I hope it's a close game for the Ravens so we can actually see if the Niners can overcome a close game. We haven't really seen that yet out of the Niners. But when they get a lead, they're unbeatable. Like if they get a lead on the first quarter against any team, they're winning every single game. If they fall behind, that's when that's where the questions are gonna arise for them. They had their 3 losses, they fell behind early and weren't able to come back. But the Niners are the number 1 team in football right now. Christian McCaffrey should be MVP, but that's neither here or there. It's gonna wind up being Brock Purdy, most likely if the Niners win against the Ravens. But yeah, the Niners are just the best team in football right now. There's no argument to that. I want to know your thoughts, Chase, before we move on to the best bets and Luke's Locks.
I don't have any huge discrepancies in the list. I'm still not sold on the Dolphins completely. I think that this is going to be a great week to show if they're actually a real deal team or not when they play the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Do they play them at home, or are the Cowboys away?
It's in Miami, but the weather shouldn't be a factor because it's hot out there. The Cowboys will be okay with that.
I think depending on how they play that game is going to prove whether they're actually going to make a run in the playoffs or not. Niners are definitely solidified as the 1 spot for right now. This is a super weird year for the NFL. I just don't feel like there's many great teams. There's definitely some good teams, but there's no world
Yeah.
beaters besides the Niners right now. I think the Ravens, they're definitely a great team. They're the best team in the AFC, but I think I'd probably have the Cowboys and the Eagles above them. Chiefs have
Mhm.
really regressed from last year, and then besides them, I mean, the Bills are definitely heading in the right track. But besides those teams, I just usually there's at least like 8, 9 teams you could see doing something in the playoffs, at least making some kind
Yeah.
of run. I just don't see that happening this year.
Right now, there's if I had to say if the teams I could see making a run, looking past like the rest of the regular season, because some of the teams might get some stuff figured out in the regular season. So we'll take that into account. The teams that could make a run potentially by the time we get to playoff time: the Niners, Ravens, Bills, maybe the Dolphins. I could see. I hate to say it, the Cowboys. I actually have been. It's another hot take, but I'll get to that when the playoffs come. If the Cowboys play the Niners, it's hard to beat a good team 4 times. I'll leave it at that. It's hard to beat a really good team 4 times in a row, and then that would be the fourth time they've played them in the last 3 years. So I'll leave it at that. By the time we come to my pick, my thought might change on that game, especially depending on how this week goes. But the Lions, I don't really see them doing anything. I could see them maybe winning a playoff game. So you got 5 teams that I could see potentially doing something. And then the Eagles, I could see maybe doing something if they get the ship, if they get everything going in the right direction, they get the ship steering right back in the right direction. And then the Chiefs, I could see maybe doing something if they can figure it out to a degree. And Rasheed Rice continues to improve.
Yeah, I
So
think I would say there's about 6 for me. I'd say Niners, Ravens, Bills. I wouldn't throw the Dolphins in there yet. Maybe that changes after this week. Cowboys, Eagles are definitely in there for me still. I think they're just in a rough patch. I think if they get things going, they're still the best team in football, roster wise. Maybe the Niners are
mhm,
better than them, and then I'd throw the Chiefs in there just because they have Patrick Mahomes.
yeah. So six to 7 teams right now that can actually do something in the playoffs. Otherwise, it's a bunch of above average teams and then shit. One of these weeks, maybe next week I'll do it. I'll show like my tier ranking and it'll give like a good view on how bad the bottom of the NFL is. I'll do that after I show like my power rankings and it'll just give people an idea of just how insanely average to bad the NFL is.
Here's a question: is there any team you don't have in your top 10 that you think could make a playoff run? Because I have one in mind.
I have to. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. I have it in a Google Doc on my phone.
Well, just while you're looking
Pulling
at
it
it, I
up.
think the Jags, if everything comes together for them, I think they could do something in the playoffs. Maybe they're definitely. I wouldn't say that they're a Super Bowl contender, but I could see them beating a team in the playoffs.
I could see them maybe winning a game. My biggest thing with the Jags though is Trevor Lawrence, especially this year. He's looking like an okay quarterback, nothing special. He's not looking like the quarterback everyone thought he was. And I was a big Trevor Lawrence believer, but he's looking just like an okay quarterback. Quarterback who's going to win you games, but nothing special. That's my
Yeah, I don't
biggest
know.
thing with the
I mean,
Jaguars. I have them at 13.
13.
Yeah. This you can make a case for them at 12, but I have them at 13. The team that I want to see get in, and I think a lot of people in this area do, except maybe you because you're a Steelers fan, but in the Delaware area, if there's other people listening, not in this area, but the Browns, Joe Cool, playoff Joe. I'd love to see him get in. Joe Flacco versus the Ravens in the playoffs. If the Browns somehow get to the divisional round, Joe Flacco pulls off an upset. That would be very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean,
Ravens
it's a super,
fans,
super weak AFC this year, so I'm sure you'll probably end up seeing the Browns in there as long as they can hold out for these last few weeks.
Ravens fans would be like, who do I root for? Do I root for Joe? Or do I root for the Ravens? They wouldn't be upset either way because
I
Either
think
way,
you'll
they'd get to root for Joe
find most want to root
Flacco.
for the Ravens.
Yeah, but either way, even if the Ravens lost, they'd still get to root for Joe Flacco the rest of the way, even though they'd have to root for the Browns.
Yeah, it's definitely a
But
cool story, but you'll never. I don't know if I can encourage
if
the
Joe
Browns to
Flacco
win.
wins a playoff game this year, I'll be shocked. But
A lot
it's
of it's
just
going to come
fun.
down to seeding
40-year-old
because
Joe Flacco.
there's going to be some bad teams that get in. It's just the way it is. It's going to be this year. Maybe not bad, but they're
Before
not great.
before doing the best bets, I actually have a screenshot. I did some playoff predictions after the Eagles Cowboys game, and the seeding's based on like playoff percentages. The Browns right now, based on the playoff percentages, are likely going to be the 5 seed. I have them playing the Jaguars. They'll probably lose that matchup. At the seeding based on the playoff percentages right now in the AFC would be the Texans 7, Bills 6, Browns 5, Jaguars 4, Chiefs 3, Dolphins 2, Ravens 1. In the NFC, Rams 7, Vikings 6, Cowboys 5, Buccaneers 4, Lions 3, Eagles 2, Niners 1. And in that scenario, I would actually have the Rams beating the Eagles as well. But I think the Eagles aren't making it out of the first round, but we'll
There's
see
no
how
way
the
the
seeding
Rams
shakes
are gonna
out
beat
after
the
this
Eagles.
week. Rams are playing really good right now. I don't it's
Things
probably
will
an
change.
overreaction, but
It is. It's a huge overreaction. You know, once things settle down, I think you guys. This is my prediction for the Eagles. I think you guys crush the Giants this week. Maybe not crush, but I think you guys win by at least 2 scores, and I think you'll start to settle down. Who do you play the week after the Giants?
we play the Cardinals. I'm actually worried about that. Jonathan Gannon.
No, I think
And
that's
then we
going to
play
be
the
a statement
Giants
game for
again.
you guys. And I wouldn't even. Well, you guys are going to have to play your starters week 17, depending on what the Cowboys
Yeah.
do.
And we're in a race with the Lions still for the 2 seed. Right now, the Lions are in control of the 2 seed. They
You're in
control
a
their
good
own
spot,
destiny
though.
for the 2 seed.
This is where you want to be when you start to hit a rough patch. At least you got some easy games coming up to work on some stuff.
We're gonna get into your best bets, and then I'll give my thoughts on those, and then Luke's locks to close out the episode. Here's Chase's best bets he gave, and when I was texting him, and I put these in to the Google slide. You can go ahead and give your picks.
Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to pull something up for it.
All right. One thing that stands out here is we have only one of the same, but I don't have any of the games picking against you when I show mine.
Did you have
And I
the Eagles covering against the Giants?
No, I did not pick that game. Stayed away from it because I don't trust this team right now.
Do you bet
But
on
I
the
don't
Eagles?
trust Tommy
Eagles
Cutlets. It depends. Last week I actually picked the Seahawks on a parlay card, but this week I don't have a good read on the game. I haven't had a good read on the Eagles for like a month, and I've been saying that week in, week out.
I picked the Commanders mainly because of Zach Wilson. I think him being out is just the Commanders are going to have to try to lose that game if he's not playing.
Yeah, Sam Howell's been good too this year, solid at least.
Yeah, he's been really good, better than people expected.
And then I see you have the Jaguars -0.5.
Yeah, I think if they're going to want to do anything in the playoffs, now's the time to start proving that they can beat teams, especially teams like the Bucks. They're not horrible, but they're not world beaters either. It's a team that they can beat and they should beat. Broncos.
Yeah, I actually have the Jaguars and Bucks like dead even in my power rankings. The Jaguars are ahead of them, but Jaguars with the expectations they had should be able to beat them. I actually really like that Broncos pick.
Yeah, the Broncos at home. They've definitely turned the season around. They're not heading in the right direction right now, but from where they started, they've definitely improved a lot. And the Patriots team is just horrible. They can't put points up. Their defense isn't very good. It's mediocre at best, and yeah, I just don't see them finding a way to lose that game, especially at home in a primetime game.
Hmm. I
Then you got the
I hate how
Giants.
that game's at 8:15 at Broncos Patriots. That's so annoying.
Yeah, that's going to be a boring game.
Like, at least put a decent game on at that time.
There's been a lot of games this season that I thought should have been flexing. They're just not flexing them. They're just leaving them there. A lot of the games with the Jets, because Aaron Rodgers was going to be there, so they had a lot of them in the prime time, but they've just left them there.
The NFL wouldn't flex the Cowboys Dolphins because that would get blocked by the other network. But why not put like Lions Vikings in that 8:15 slot? Divisional matchup, top team in the NFL versus a divisional matchup on the road. Or Saints Rams. I know Saints Rams play tomorrow night. But yeah, like put the Lions Vikings in that slot. That would be a
I
lot
don't.
more
Yeah,
entertaining.
it'd be a lot more interesting than watching the Patriots put up 3 points and the Broncos put up 14.
Yeah. Without further ado, though, the rest of your picks, want to go over those?
Yeah, Giants 10.5. That's just kind of going off of what the Eagles have done the past few weeks. Deep in my heart, I think the Eagles somehow pull it out. But if I was to bet and I had to bet on that game, I would take the Giants plus 10.5. And you can find the line almost up to 12 on other sites and different sites.
Mm-hmm.
Then Ravens plus 5.5. I don't know. I being a Steelers fan, I don't want to like the Ravens, but they've got a really, really good defense, and Lamar Jackson's playing great this year. This you could argue this is but besides his undisputed MVP or unanimous MVP, this is without a doubt his best year. He's starting to throw the ball a little bit better. He still can scramble and he's mobile. I don't know. I think as long as they can stay in the game until the second half, they're going to have a chance to win that game. And I definitely think they can cover with 5.5.
I think too with that pick. I'll give my thought on that pick in a second because I got that on Luke's locks. We're here for Luke's locks on this episode. Before I get into them, I want to give my record from my picks against the spread this year. Also, before I do that, I also just saw a tweet from Ike Reese or John Clark of NBC Sports Philadelphia. Joel Embiid, 51 points tonight. Just wanted to do that for anyone watching. So another huge game for Embiid. But back to Luke's locks. This year against the spread, I'm 131 and 92. I'm picking at close to a 60% clip. I'm in a 99.8th percentile on ESPN and I rank 346 on ESPN. So I'm doing fairly good this year. I'm 5 picks away from the leaderboard on ESPN, which if I can get on there, I'd be very excited. So my picks have been solid this year for the most part. If you're picking at a 60% clip in betting against a spread, that's really good. Without further ado, though, I got the Rams minus 4.5 against the Saints tonight as we're recording this podcast. Minus 4.5. I think the Rams should be able to cover that. The Saints are Derek Carr hasn't been great. The Rams are rolling right now. Kyron Williams, as I mentioned earlier, is really good. Hopefully he can win me a fantasy championship. Hopefully that could potentially come against Chase next week. But we might even have to discuss that before we close because there's a chance me and him are actually predicted to play against each other next week in a fantasy championship. But Rams minus 4.5. I like that a lot against the Saints. Matt Stafford's having a good year this year. The Bills minus 12.5 against the Chargers. The Chargers lost 63-21 last week against the Raiders. The Bills should cruise to a win in this one. It won't be 63-21, but they should cruise to a win in this one. It should be 47-7, 47-3. There should be just a flat-out blowout, not even close, this game. The Seahawks minus 2.5 against the Titans. I think that 2.5 is too good to pass up. It's almost a pick'em game. And Geno Smith is coming back for the Seahawks. The Seahawks should be able to beat the Titans by 10 points. I like the Seahawks there. The Cardinals plus 4.5 against the Bears. I think 4.5 is a good line there. I think it's just about a 3-point game either way. I could see it going. I think the Cardinals cover, keep it close. And then the Ravens. My reason I got the Ravens plus 5.5. I think the Niners are due for a letdown eventually. Every team, it seems like, has had that letdown when they're not expecting it. And the Ravens are a really good team. This is a potential Super Bowl matchup. I think they're able to keep it close and pull away. Not pull away, but keep it close. And if they get a lead, I don't know if I envision the Niners coming back. Because I don't know if I trust Brock Purdy coming back. Brock Purdy's been really good. Don't get me wrong there. Like, I'm not hating on him with that. But if the Ravens get a lead, we haven't seen the ability for the Niners to be able to come back. So I think the Ravens keep it within 5.5, and I actually think they win outright. Because if it's close, I think the Ravens are able to pull it out. If the Ravens win this game too, Lamar Jackson, I believe, this time next week, will be the front runner most likely for MVP if the Ravens are able to pull it out. Because he will have beaten Brock Purdy. He's second in the odds right now. So there's that. Lamar Jackson, this is a potential MVP on the game for Lamar Jackson. If he comes out, has a really, really good game, he can steal away MVP from Brock Purdy. And then for Luke's locks, this is an honorable mention. I have the stats written down as well. A Boston Scott touchdown. Boston Scott against the Giants in 9 career games against the Giants has 668 yards from scrimmage, which is 74 a game, an average of 74 a game. That includes the receiving and running. 17 receptions, which is 2 a game. And then he has, in 9 games, he has 11 touchdowns in 9 games against the Giants. He averages over 1 touchdown a game. Boston Scott, honorable mention for Luke's locks. If he comes up with another touchdown, that would be insane. He's been the giant killer the last few years, ever since we've had him on our roster. I'd love to see another Boston Scott touchdown against him. It would just be very funny, especially if we get a lead. Just give Boston Scott the ball, let him go get a touchdown, and I'm pretty sure they might if we get a lead like we should and we perform like we should. Give him a garbage time touchdown at the end of the game. That's Luke's locks this week. I think this is going to be a very exciting week of football. Since this is my first time having you on, Chase, I want to ask you, because might not be able to have you on for the playoffs, depends on the matchups. If you were to predict right now, what do you think the Super Bowl is?
I want to say Niners, Ravens, but I don't see the Ravens beating the Chiefs for the AFC spot. And man, I know that the Niners are great. I think the Eagles are going to be in the Super Bowl this year. I really do.
If we somehow get back, I'd shit myself with how bad this is looking right now. It's
I don't know. Who do you think?
very bad, but I'll go through the predictions because I got to explain why. Since I brought it up, I'll go through. I had the Rams beating the Eagles, 7-seeded Rams beating the Eagles, 6-seeded Vikings losing to the Lions, Cowboys beating the Bucks, Texans losing to the Dolphins, Bills beating the Chiefs in round 1 at Arrowhead, 6-seeded Bills beat the 3-seeded Chiefs. The Jaguars beat the Browns. I think the Bills are really hot right now. I think the Bills go in there and beat the Chiefs the way they're playing right now. Then in the divisional round, the matchups would be Rams, Niners. Niners would win that. Cowboys would beat the Lions in Detroit. The Bills, I think they would actually, with the way they're playing right now, I think they would beat the Ravens. They're the hottest team in football right now besides for the Niners. And then the Jaguars, Dolphins would be the other matchup. I think the Dolphins would win that. And then your conference championship games are Cowboys, Niners, Bills, Dolphins. In the Cowboys-Niners game, you have a matchup of chokers there. Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys have been choking in the last few years. Kyle Shanahan's been known as a playoff choker. He had the Super Bowl choke job when he was the Falcons offensive coordinator. He had the Super Bowl choke job as a head coach of the Niners when they had a 10-point lead against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. He blocked a tight end. He used a tight end to try to block Hassan Reddick like an idiot this past year. Lost to the Rams the previous year. That would be a matchup that would be interesting in a conference championship matchup. I think, though, because it's hard to beat a team 4 times, this is a bit hot takey, but I think the Cowboys would be able to pull it out because it's very hard to beat a good team 4 times. Like, I can keep repeating that, but because I think it's true. And then the Super Bowl. Right now, if I had to predict, would be Bills-Cowboys, and I think the Bills win the Super Bowl. Bills are my Super Bowl pick right now.
I don't know. The Bills have just been really up and down. I know they're up right now. They're really up right now, but I don't know if I'd go far enough to say that they're going to be my Super Bowl favorites.
Ever since they fired their offensive coordinator, I'm pulling up their schedule now. They fired Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, right before the Eagles game. So this is the scores of their last 4 games. 32-6. Then they lost in overtime, 34-37. They beat the Chiefs 20-17 at Arrowhead on the road. And then they just throttled the Cowboys 31-10. Those are some very impressive games. Even losing to the Eagles, you only lost by 3, and the Eagles had to come back to beat you. You won at Arrowhead against the Chiefs, and you just dominated the Cowboys. Straight up dominated. They've been putting up close to 30 a game with Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. Ever since they made that change, they've been headed in the right direction. I think, and the fact that they're hot right now, I think that's going to carry into the playoffs. The Dolphins game for them is going to be telling in the regular season, that last Dolphins game.
I just can't pick against the Chiefs yet. As long as they got Mahomes and Kelsey, I think that they're going to be the front runners in the AFC.
It's almost like the Patriots too. People used to pick against them all the time. They want the Patriots to lose. But it's just hard to pick against. It's hard to pick against that team just because they always find a way to get the job done. They will probably prove my prediction list wrong that I just went over. But it's right now how they're playing. They don't look like they will. But it's Mahomes. I agree with that part. He'll likely find a way to be able to get it done. To send us off on this, it was great having you on, Chase, on this episode. I'd love to have you on again. Maybe get Brandon and Logan on an episode as well. Haven't talked to Brandon in a while.
Talk about some basketball next time.
Yep, as basketball season gets closer to an end, talk about some basketball topics. As basketball gets into more mid-season form, starts to ramp up. But as we wrap up, I'm going to have Jason Kelsey and the Philly Specials send everyone off. Have a Merry Christmas and enjoy this little song from last year's Philly Specials album.
This is about Santa Claus coming to Philly. This is about Santa Claus coming to Old City. It's about him coming to North Philly and Kensington and Brewerytown and South Philly and Point Breeze and Manningham and Delco and Northern Fairmount and Fishtown, Grand Hospital, and West Philly. And you know what? Even you too, South Jersey. Even you guys. Santa Claus is coming. All right, come on, everybody. Sing it with me one more time. Santa Claus is coming to town. 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 Merry Christmas, Philly. I said,